Good morning. It's Sunday, September 4th. And a few days ago in Philadelphia, President Biden gave a speech. And he gave a speech attacking former President Trump and his so-called MAGA ideology. And this speech, in which he attacked the MAGA ideology, he also attacked Trump's followers. And he called a large group of them semi-fascists. And that has sparked a retaliatory attack. It has sparked threats and calls for violence. Now, is that what this country is looking for? Are there people out there that really want to have a civil war? Is that a form of insanity? For 4 years, we suffered under our former president's ideology and his poor management of this country. So now, when that ideology comes under attack, and the attack is valid when you look at things like the big lie, whereby the former president, refusing to admit that he lost the election. And he lost 2 elections, actually, because he never won the popular vote. But in his mind, he was cheated, because that's the only way he could ever lose anything is by being cheated. And he has a huge group of followers who believe that. And there are many people who are on ballots right now, running in primaries, who believe that the election was stolen. So it shouldn't surprise us that when Biden steps up and calls these people out, that they threaten his life and that they threaten civil war. And there are many of our senior counterterrorism officials who say they really fear that calling Trump supporters extremists is viewed as a call to arms and would only inflame an already volatile threat environment. Can you imagine that we in the United States are living in a violent, volatile threat environment? Could you ever have imagined that growing up in this country? And this country is a great place, but it hasn't always been the most honest place. Because we have really, for much of our existence, been segregationist in thinking. Remember, the Civil War ended in 1860-something. It took 100 years for civil rights legislation to be passed. We're not all that great. But we probably are the best place in the world to live, but we're not that great. And we still have a lot of work to do. But you can recognize the fact that we are a democracy. Because if we weren't a democracy, we would not have this division in our population. We would not have these huge groups of extremists who are terrified of the fact that in maybe 15 or 20 years, we will no longer be a white Christian nation. And so much of what Biden said has inflamed those people to threats of a civil war. What's happening in our country right now is not normal. That's what Biden said. It's probably never been normal, really, but it's been well hidden, I guess. But Trump brought out the worst in people. He brought people out and allowed them to say things and do things that used to be held undercover. When the people in Charlottesville were yelling, "The Jews will not replace us, the Jews will not replace us," he called them very fine people. And listen, anti-Semitism and racism has been running wild in this country since its existence, probably. And if you look back on what happened in World War II when we turned the Jews away and we had immigration quotas, and those immigration quotas were sparked by people who wanted to keep this country white and Christian. Even though we had many influxes that helped people when the Irish came because of the famines. And we let the Jews into the country when the pogroms were really going crazy in Poland and Russia. So we've done some great things in this country, but then again, we haven't done that many great things lately. And then you have the politicians who represent the semi-fascists telling Biden he should apologize to them. Why? Why should he apologize to people who march and say awful things? Somebody has to stand up and tell these people that they are wrong, that their whole image of this country is cockeyed. But we can't expect their representatives to tell them that, because then they won't be reelected. Because in a large segment of this country, that's all the politicians care about, is getting reelected. And we have a country that is being destroyed because of that. Many who start out trying to be good become less good when they recognize the fact that they must kowtow to their constituents in order to keep their job. Instead of explaining to their constituents the rights and wrongs and the proper way to run a government, they allow these people to do terrible things. And what's even worse is the gerrymandering that takes place in order to keep certain groups of politicians in. So in reality, in this country, 90% of the seats for representatives are locked up by one party or the other. So fair elections take place about 10% of the time. So maybe I'm off a little bit on the topic here, but on Friday afternoon, the posts on forums that were popular with the white supremacists and far-right extremists called for the assassination of Biden and named the Jewish administration officials, including Attorney General Garland and Janet Yellen and Secretary Orlando Mayorkas, as potential targets because they're Jews. And Jews don't belong in this country anymore, right? And also along with those threats came the declarations of civil war. And all of this because Biden spoke up. And then you have the website Gab.com. I never heard of it, but it's a free-thinking website, leaning, I think, way to the right. One user posted a series of threats, violence threats, accusing Biden of stealing the election, right? Now, this was reported by the Site Intelligence Group. That's a group that monitors sites looking for these kinds of comments. They don't stop those comments. They just report on them. And we all know that Trump and many of his supporters have long claimed without any evidence that the 2020 election was stolen due to widespread voter fraud. That in itself is a joke. But none of this is really a joke. This is serious. This country is seriously divided. It's slowly shredding, and I am very disturbed by that. So I'll let you go now. See you in the morning. Bye.